Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Living in the Limelight, an Anton Scholl and Friends podcast where we discuss music from the artist and fan perspective. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to another episode of Living in the Limelight. I'm your host, Anton Scholl, and with me today is Morgan Fatali from Light Hunter Studio. Morgan, how are you today?
We're doing great over here. Thank you.
Great. You know, we're switching over to a lot of different artists on here and would love to get kind of an insight on all about Light Hunter Studios, all of the things that you have going on out there in Cave Creek. And obviously, first, we'd like to know just about, the Light Hunter and about the studio itself. So let's give a little background on the Light Hunter.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on, of course. And on behalf of Fatali, the Light Hunter, I want to thank you, Anton, for inviting us onto the show and for all your support in Light Hunter's artistry. And just to share a little bit, for those of you who are not familiar with Light Hunter's artwork, he's actually been photographing the Southwest for 40 years now, a world's top landscape photographer, and really a master at what he does. His work has become collected worldwide. And in Light Hunter, he's really able to capture the spirit of the Southwest. And it's hard to sometimes articulate. Words sometimes don't do it justice. You have to see the work in person, but he's really able to capture that spirit and the light in these unusual canyons and desert vistas all throughout the Southwest.
Yeah, and I got to say that when I saw the stuff in person, amazing. I mean, being not a photographer myself, but looking at the photos and just seeing how the light, even behind you, you have some of these pictures that are showing up. And he has had this, I'm going to call it an obsession. It may not be, but this obsession with finding the right light.
Yes.
For quite some time. And I know that even as a child, talk about that a little bit and so we can get a bit of background on that.
Yeah, Light Hunter, he was actually born in Brooklyn, New York in 1965. And his family moved him out to Arizona when he was just a young boy. He was about 6 years old when he moved out west. And unfortunately, when Light Hunter was young, his mother passed away. He was about 14 when she passed. And as a teenager, Light Hunter, he didn't know how to handle that kind of a loss. And so he found his solace and comfort by hiking out into the desert Southwest. Often as a teenager, when he was young, he'd hike with his dad a lot out in the desert. And after his mother passed, that's just how he found his comfort, was just by taking off into these unusual places of spiritual beauty where he found solace and peace. And he'd witnessed these beautiful moments of light being out in the desert. And he said he knew at a very early age, he felt compelled to share this with the world. And so when Light Hunter, when he actually turned 18 years old, he received 2 checks in the mail from his mother's passing. Both checks were from Social Security, and they were for only $450 a piece. And he turned around, he bought a camera with his first check. You can actually see his first camera right behind me. It's designed after a 100-year-old model, so there's no batteries or computers at all. It's essentially a light box. And then he took his second check for $450, and he actually bought a darkroom with that. And those were his 2 investments as a teenager starting off. And he just dove head over heels into this. He never looked back. He's been, we just celebrated last year his 40th anniversary of photographing the Southwest, 4 decades of his artistry. But he still today works not only with the camera behind me, the large film camera, but he's actually worked with something, he completely designs his own cameras, but even bigger format sizes than the one behind me. But it's just a very primitive tool, and it's more about his vision and the way he sees the world. It's just beautiful. But as a teenager, let me get back into this. Light Hunter, he used to rappel with ropes into the canyons in northern Arizona. A lot of the slot canyons, and a lot of the viewers who are watching this episode are probably familiar with Antelope Canyon and a lot of the slot canyons. Well, Light Hunter, he was instrumental in really helping to put these canyons on the map back in the 80s. Nobody knew about them. He worked with the Navajos very closely to help turn them into tribal parks. And now you can actually take guided tours into the canyons, but it was really important for him to make sure these places were protected. And he spent a lot of time in them. And he said that he'd watch the light come in and bounce off the canyon walls. And as a teenager, it saved his life, because if you think about it, kids don't have coping skills after losing a family member. They don't know how to handle that kind of a loss. And nature really saved his life being in those canyons. And his whole mission is really to share the spirit of nature with the world, and really to share the healing powers of nature with the world. It's something that we're becoming very disconnected from nowadays. And when our people come into our gallery space and they see Light Hunter's artistry, they'll look at the work, and a lot of times it'll move someone to tears, and they can't even articulate why it is that they're crying, but it's nature, and it's healing, and it's something that we need in our life.
Well, and I think the biggest thing is that it's all natural. When you look at something, like if I go to a museum or if I go out to look at something, I'm basically looking at it. I'm moving to the next thing. I'm looking and going on next. When you see Light Hunter's photographs on there, you are literally staring at it, because one, it's so natural, and you see what you see that's not done by computer trickery. There isn't anything that is done to it that is, and you kind of marvel at, like, well, how does that happen? How is he adding? It's like you think in your mind that he's adding all of these different things to the photograph, but it's really not. It's how the photograph was taken, right?
It's Light Hunter, his eye, it's the way he sees the world, and he does see the world so differently than most people. So when he's out in nature, he sits and marvels at creation, and he gives us thanks. And this doesn't happen overnight. I mean, what everyone doesn't see, you see the finished results hanging on the wall, but what they don't see is all the work that goes into the actual capturing of the photograph. I mean, Light Hunter, he backpacks with about 100 pounds worth of gear by the time he packs up his camera with his film plates and his lenses and everything he needs. So it's an immense amount of work just to get to these locations. And also to find these locations. I mean, it's hiking and exploring, and he'll study these areas for years and years. And then he'll go back with his camera, and he'll sit sometimes for weeks in one location just to take one single photograph, which is so different than most people nowadays, because with digital technologies, people take so many photographs, and you have the ability to alter them in Photoshop or on a computer and change things.
Right.
But this is four decades of Light Hunter's artistry. So many of his photographs have been captured before the digital world even existed. And it's all about light for him. It's just sitting and waiting for these beautiful moments of light. It's like when you see a beautiful sunset and you try to, you think, this is only going to last for a few minutes and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Light Hunter tries to capture on film, are these exquisite moments. And this is his life body of work. It's incredible.
Yeah, and Arizona certainly the place to find the amazing light shows. I mean, just bouncing off of things around here, it's pretty crazy. But the thing I kept thinking about, and you started to mention it also, is most people take a digital camera. They'll snap a quick picture. They'll get on the computer. They'll enhance everything. They'll change everything up in Photoshop. They'll add a sunset or a sunrise. They'll add all these things to it. That doesn't happen, but when he's doing it. But my amazement is how he carries that camera, because to be honest with you, I keep staring at that camera. and when I saw it at your studio, I was just in awe of the camera itself. How does he get that camera? And I've seen pictures of him, like even the camera's like above water, like, how does he carry around all of this equipment and get into these small areas to take what could be one photo in, and have to wait 4 or 5 hours, maybe even longer, to capture the right photo? That's got to be hard.
He is this is just his passion. This is what he does. It's what he's done since he was a teenager. And, his camera sizes have only grown in size as he's aged. So it's sometimes one of his cameras, we went photographing down the Grand Canyon. We took a river trip down the Grand Canyon. It was a private trip. It wasn't a commercial trip. And there were quite a few of us. There were about 15 of us on the trip. But Light Hunter, he took one of his larger film cameras with him, and it took 4 of us to actually carry his camera, his film plates, the lenses, everything to get to the location to photograph. So it's by no means a small feat to get to these areas. And it's one of those things that I wish I would have contacted the Guinness Book of World Records, because I truly believe that it was the largest camera to ever go down the Grand Canyon in a raft.
Wow. Oh, yeah, in a raft.
Yeah,
Right.
in a raft nonetheless. Yeah.
So then let me ask you, what if you can recall, what was possibly the most difficult excursion, I would say, to capture a photo, and what was the easiest?
Gosh, that's probably a question for Light Hunter. I wish I could answer that for
Oh,
him, but I really hope that you guys are going to have to stay tuned, maybe for a second podcast where he can get on, and Anton, you can go ahead and ask
yeah.
him that question where he can get back to you on that one, because that's a great question for
Okay.
him.
And
Yeah.
I would then also, looking at these, you have to think about the fact that there is not, the quality is one thing, but the scarcity of the photos. Okay.
Yes.
These are one of a kind.
Yes.
So, that obviously is a huge contrast to like what we see out there a lot with photography. They're taking, basic photos of things, but these are really rare and scarce photos, right?
Yes, and just to elaborate on that a little bit, Light Hunter, he's been working in an analog darkroom since he was a teenager. He's mastered the art of color printing in a darkroom, which only a few people in the world have really mastered this technique. And his works, he cannot mass produce them. In fact, he bought the last of the papers and chemicals for this darkroom process that he works with. And what we have in our collection is a last of. And when it sells out, that's it. And when we talk about the scarcity of his work, I mean, I've known Light Hunter, some of his photographs, I've known him to make only one of a piece. On average, you can typically expect him to make about 25 in the darkroom. But with that being said, every single image is an original, because he has to go back and start from scratch. It's not like a printer where you can just say, I want 25 and they all come out repeatable. In his darkroom, the chemicals change, the temperatures. There's so many technical things that go into the darkroom side of it, which again, that would be another question for you to ask him about the technical side. But every single image is unique in its own rights, and they're all numbered, they're signed, each has a certificate of authenticity. And when we sell out of a photograph, that's it. They get retired from the collection. So they're very rare, very collectible, and when they sell out, that's it. They're done.
That's it. Wow.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would think that, obviously that does increase the value of things, which is, just in general, always a good thing, when you have that. But I look at, oh yeah. I look at things like when you say darkroom, I mean, in the past, it's got to be, let's just say 10, 15 years. Okay. Dark rooms have gone away.
Yeah.
There have not been dark rooms out there for a long period of time. Probably even longer than I'm thinking, but I know, like, my wife, who's a graphic designer, we used to cut and paste things in the dark room, and none of that happens. Everything is done on the computer now. And I would think that there are not many people out there who are physically doing in the dark room because of time, because of money, and because of what you just said, the scarcity of the actual materials. That's got to be I mean, that's really big in my eyes. I mean, as far as like the actual work that goes into this.
So Light Hunter, he's a true artist. I mean, from not only his capture of the image and all the work that goes into the capture of it and the study and the waiting and the patience, but then you look at the other side of it and it's the actual printing in the darkroom. And it's so important for him, for Light Hunter, to make sure that what he captures on film shows up in the image that you see behind me. And so that's why he's so particular about his work, and it's more important for him. He'd rather have less of his work out there rather than to mass produce it. And that's such a different mindset than what you see nowadays, because nowadays, with the digital world, you do have the ability to mass produce things. But with what Light Hunter does, he doesn't.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a question here, because I think a lot of people, when somebody walks into a studio, they look at pictures and they say, well, okay, it looks great here, But
Yeah.
when I get it home, I don't have this kind of lighting and I don't have this kind of studio setup. There's no way it's going to look like that when I take it home.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you say to something like that?
What I say is we have 60,000 patrons and collectors of light hunters artistry all over the world. We've shipped images to Germany and Australia and to China, France, Italy. I mean, you name it, all over the world. And we send lighting recommendations with the images. We are happy to talk to our patrons and collectors about the lighting to make sure that they get what's going to really show the work in its best light in their home. But we have so many collectors all over who are so happy with it once they get it home. The testimonials that we actually receive from our patrons are just, they're moving. And it's one of those things that they're so grateful once they have it in their home and they can look at this every day, and they're so great. They're just grateful and thankful for it. And that's what really, at the end of the day, makes you're so happy, is that they can live with this and share it with others too.
Oh yeah. And speaking of sharing too, I know that we had talked before about he does some nonprofit stuff and things with like Navajo Nation, things of that nature. What explain that part, because that's interesting
Yeah,
in regards to the Navajo people and how that came together.
you know, the Navajos have always been near and dear to Light Hunter's his heart ever since he was a teenager. And part of that goes back to when he was a teenager and he was lost and he was trying to find himself. He used to spend a lot of time in Antelope Canyon. And there's a native family, the Young family used to check on him all the time. And verbally, when Light Hunter was young, he didn't necessarily articulate what he was going through, that he had lost his mother and that he was grieving. But they recognized that he was suffering and that something was going on with him. And they, as a teenager, as a young man, they wrapped their arms around him and they just showed him an immense amount of love. And at that age, Light Hunter, he saw what a lot of the Navajos and the natives went without. You know, they didn't have running water, they didn't have electricity, but what they did have was an immense amount of love and happiness and just they're very spiritual people. So they took Light Hunter in and they wrapped their arms around him, and they used to perform these ceremonies for him when he was younger, and they'd slap him with eagle feathers. He always tells me these stories, and I have to chuckle because I have gotten to know a lot of the Navajos over the years. So I can think about this and envision it happening. But they really helped him get through a difficult period. So Light Hunter, he helped turn Antelope Canyon into a tribal park back in the 80s. And he worked with the Navajos very closely in the Lichi'i chapter house. And he did all the writings for their brochures and all the photography, of course, for their brochures. And now you can actually take guided tours into Antelope Canyon, which is beautiful. But he stayed close to the Navajos over the years. And later in life, I would say about 6 years ago, Light Hunter, he created a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. It's called Light Ranch Mission. And he started helping to provide food and essentials to the natives in need in northern Arizona, not only the Navajo, but the Hopi as well. And he was instrumental in creating this nonprofit. It grew to be quite large in size, where Light Hunter, and the help of he had about 30 volunteers at a time, load food into vehicles. He'd have about 600 native families that would come through in a single day, and they would move about 80,000 pounds of food in a single day to families in need. And he did this consecutively for about 3-4 years, and poured his entire heart and soul and being into this. And so many of the natives were so grateful, but he just wanted to take that time to be able to give back to them, because they helped him when he was younger and made such an impact in his life that he felt like later on in life, he wanted to take a time out to be able to give back to them. So now, fast forward, Light Hunter, he has gotten back into his artistry. He still is doing the nonprofit work, and he's doing a lot of remote deliveries and outreach programs to a lot of the elders, mostly, who need the help on the reservation, who don't have firewood or running water still. So he helps to coordinate firewood distributions out to them, water tanks when needed, and of course food as well. And we do clothing as well at the nonprofit at Light Ranch Mission. But he has dove head over heels back into his artistry most recently, and he'll continue to balance the two of the giving back, but he always calls it the heartwork side of what he does. This is the artwork side of it, and then he has the heartwork side of what he does as well.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know a lot of that, and that's just amazing. And I'm trying to think about, like, I wanted to ask a question about like what you do, what both of you do to kind of get away from all of this or to just have fun. It sounds like you don't have a heck of a lot of time, but I mean, so what do you guys do outside of all of the photography and and all the things you're doing?
We wouldn't do anything unless we were having fun. First of all, we love to hike and explore. But one of the things, I don't know if you're even familiar with, but music was actually Light Hunter's first love. He loves to play guitar, and he's actually done a lot of album covers for some new age music artists, and he worked really closely with, I'm not sure if you've heard of Nicholas Gunn, but he worked really closely with Nicholas Gunn, and they produced a record together where Light Hunter had all of his artistry, and Nicholas Gunn, he wrote all of the music with Light Hunter's artistry as the inspiration to the music. And it's really beautiful. It did actually win some awards, the album itself, and it did pretty well. He was voted best photography on the album too, which was really nice. But kind of all full circle, music was Light Hunter's first love. So I know that, music is your love. And it's interesting how things kind of tie around and come back together full circle.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that, but that's nice. Album covers, especially, back in the day, I would say, the day meaning the 70s and 80s, album covers were like the big deal. That was the thing. The albums covers were, people would buy based on your album cover. Now CDs, you don't even see album covers anymore, because after CDs they got small, but now it's all MP3, it's all computerized. You don't even see them anymore. But there were some phenomenal album covers. I can just imagine, the album covers that he could produce. That would be phenomenal to look at.
Yeah,
well, we'll have to look those up and see where they are.
That'll be a fun conversation for you when you guys have another talk about this.
Right. So I know that we do have a big event coming up. Let's talk about that, because it's in Scottsdale. But before we jump into that, actually, I wanted to ask you a question of, it's great to have you in Cave Creek.
Yeah.
I love Cave Creek. I love the people of Cave Creek, the area, the scenery, the views. I mean, everything. Cave Creek is just awesome. Why Cave Creek? I know why I did.
Good question. Yeah. We've always loved Cave Creek. Light Hunter, he grew up in the Phoenix area, and when he was a teenager, he moved north to Page, and that's where he really started his career. Had a gallery there for a number of years, all throughout the 90s, and then he opened a gallery in Zion National Park, which we had the Zion Gallery for over 25 years, so that was definitely a landmark for him and a beautiful place to live as well. He had galleries in Sedona, Palm Desert, California, Las Vegas, Nevada. And then most recently, we were in Park City for about 15 years, and we loved Park City. Park City was a beautiful place to live. And, over the years, my husband he calls himself a desert rat. He loves the desert. And so we found ourselves slowly moving back towards this area. And we ended up from Park City and Flagstaff, and then Flagstaff to Cave Creek. And this is an area that we've had our eye on for years. We've always loved it. In fact, Light Hunter has been visiting Cave Creek since he was a young boy. I mean, he remembers it being really young and coming to this area. Of course, it's grown up, quite a bit over the years, but it still has this unique feeling. You feel removed from the city. You feel like it's quiet, it's peaceful, but it's beautiful. It's really just a very nice place to be. So we're so grateful to be here.
Yeah. And we thought the same thing when we came out here. It was all about like kind of the boxes that we needed to check, in our lives. And it kind of just hit everything. It has changed a bit, but wow, what a place,
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great place to
Yeah,
do it.
so we do have our gallery studio here. It is by appointment only. So I always encourage everybody, of course you can see the work behind me, but it looks so much better when you see it in person. If you get a chance to actually see the work in person, it's incredible. So for anyone who's interested in purchasing the artwork, they can set up an appointment to come see it, to buy.
And
Yeah.
how do they do that? What information do they need?
lighthunter.com. If they just get right on our website, they can easily get in contact to us through the website, and then we can make arrangements for that.
Great. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, let's go on to the big event coming up. Let's talk about that, because
Yes.
that's huge. That's I believe it's the first one, right?
Well, this is the inaugural year for the show is called Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week. And it actually is featuring about 100 galleries, international and national. So there are galleries coming into this show from all over the world. We've got Hong Kong being represented, Dubai, Germany, some in South America. But in addition to the international galleries, there are also galleries here in the United States. We're talking about New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, a lot of the big cities these galleries are coming in for. And this is the first big year of this show. So we're really excited. We're ecstatic about this. And Light Hunter Studio, he actually was accepted into the show with all these incredible art galleries. And his work is it's a testament. It's stood the test of time over the years, and it's the best of the best. And so he's going to be featured with all of these really world-renowned artists at the show.
Wow. Yeah. And that's got to be a great feeling, because obviously being in that company, for me, it would be like, touring with all of these great bands and being part of that,
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's got to feel good.
Exactly. Yeah, it does. The show is going to be, it takes place March 20th through the 23rd of 2025. And it's going to be held at Westworld. It's going to be in the North Hall. For more details about it, anyone can get on the website. It's Scottsdale Fine Art is the website. They can purchase tickets right on there. And the show will take place Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they're actually going to have a bunch of other things going on in addition to the show. They're going to have museums are going to be there doing different talks and features. And there's going to be some art fashion shows during the actual event. And quite a few other things that they have going on, but it is not to be missed. It's really going to be a one-of-a-kind event with all of these incredible galleries coming in from all over the world.
Yeah, and I know, and I'm getting out there, and that's going to be great. I'm looking forward. Audrey and I are looking forward to seeing that. Tell me about the first day, because I can't make that first day, but there's something special going on the first day. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, the first day is actually a VIP first look. And so what they're doing is they're opening the show up on Thursday from 12 to 5 p.m. And it's really a first look for all of the collectors and art enthusiasts to come in to see all of the galleries artworks basically before everybody else, before the general admission. And so it's a opportunity for people to come in and to pick out their favorite pieces of art before they're gone, essentially. I mean, that's your first chance to get it. So that's the first day. They are having an evening event as well from 5 to 8 p.m. The website talks a little bit more about it, but that will be when some of the fashion shows take place. They're having a lot of the restaurants in Scottsdale come cater it. So there's going to be food, fashion, art, and just a whole lot of fun things going on. So that's the first day. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's going to be open. It's general admission, of course, to get in. 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, and then 11 to 5 on Sunday. But it's not to be missed. If you can come out even during the weekend, you're going to see some amazing things. It's going to be really an experience.
Now, and it sounds great. There's a lot of different things that I know that I want to see. But how do the artists that are there, and this is a hard question to ask, but I do ask this question all the time when I'm talking to musicians, because there's competition, but yet I don't see a lot of competition with Light Hunter because nobody really does that. So, I mean, like, how do they get together? Do they support each other? Is everybody on the same page, or is there competition? How is it like when you get out there?
That's a great question. You know, the art community has been so supportive of Light Hunter's artistry because what he's done is such a testament to his art. You know, he's really set the tone with fine art photography in landscapes. And here in the desert Southwest, he was the first to photograph so many of these previously unknown locations that so many people didn't know about. And the fact that he's held on to a true art form by photographing in film, he never compromised the way he captured his images, but then also his printing in the darkroom. And it just really reflects the art community's recognition to his contributions in landscape photography. So they've been so supportive, and the show is what's unique about this show is it's galleries coming in from all over. So it's not necessarily individual artists coming in for the show, but the galleries are going to be representing a handful of artists in each of their gallery displays. And so for Light Hunter to be included and accepted into that group is just, it's a real honor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now this may be a question that I might have to ask him, but if this did happen, then I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but was there a shot that got away? Was there one that was missed that he just wished that he got?
Oh my gosh, you have to ask him that question. I could not be the one to answer that, but I really hope that you have a chance for a follow-up conversation, because this would be a really great sequel for you, because he has so many great stories about his work and how he captures the images. And it's fascinating to listen to him talk about the experience. And that's one of the great things about this show that's coming up. So Light Hunter, he's had galleries all over the Southwest for over 35 years. He's had galleries, he's been photographing for 4 decades, but he's going to be at the show. So this is a great way for, as a patron, as a collector, as an art enthusiast, for you to be able to actually meet Light Hunter in person at the show, and to be able to hear the stories behind his artworks, to be able to ask him the questions, and to be able to share those, how he captured the image behind me, what it took to capture that. And it's so fascinating to listen to him, because he has so many stories behind it. And it really helps create the experience of it.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to get together again after all of this. I know how busy he is right now with everything going on. And then afterwards, yeah, I'd love to sit down and just really kind of hear the stories. And I'm sure that everybody else would love to hear the stories. And, you know, I keep thinking, like, the biggest thing that I look at is I think about people who are so passionate about the work that they do, and then technology comes along and tries to erase all of that.
Yeah.
That to me is frustrating. And it's the same thing. It falls into music. You know, musicians would go into the studio, they would make a record, they would track, they would do all these different things in the studio, use these studio type tricks on analog tape to make things happen that would take hours to do and show your passion of the music. And then somebody comes along on a computer and puts it together in 10 minutes. Right. And, you know, and I would think that has to be a little bit frustrating, you know.
There are a lot of parallels with what you're saying. Yes, a lot of parallels.
Right. I mean, so when it started to come out, was there a fear possibly that what he was doing was going to be obsoleted in some way?
You know, that's a great question for him. But what I can say is that Light Hunter, you know, over the years, and as he watched technology change, he just held true to his art form. He never compromised. And he said, you know what, my best work is yet to come. And he just held on to his art form. And he said, you know, this is it for him. So what's interesting is, now looking at it, very few people do what he does. Absolutely. Nor very few people even know how to do what he does. Right. And that's what's made his artwork even more special, more valuable, more rare, more collectible. And just, he's the real deal. He's like a musician, you know, he's the real deal who knows his art. He's a master. Right. A master.
Absolutely. Yes. And that definitely what makes it special, and what makes him really one of a kind, because the fact that he stayed true to it, didn't sell out anything, and didn't say, you know what, I'm going to keep up with the Joneses and start this digital photography and get on the internet and work out all of these different things to make a photograph, try to look as close as possible. But what he did, he stuck with it, And that's what really matters, and that's what makes him a true artist,
Yes.
versus a lot of the things that are going on now. So I for one certainly appreciate that, and I know that when people go and look at the studio and they see those photographs, like I said, they're not going to look at it and walk away. They're going to stare at it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the difference.
I agree. And even the website doesn't do it justice. I mean, it's a great way to have to see the work, but when you see it in person, it really makes a big difference. And so we really encourage everybody, if they can come out to the show this weekend, next weekend, March 20th through the 23rd, Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week is what it's called. If they can come out to the show, do so. They will not be disappointed.
Perfect. Well, Morgan, thank you for joining us. I certainly do appreciate that.
Yes.
And we will get the Light Hunter back on here pretty soon so we can go over all of these stories that we have. Best of luck on the upcoming events happening. And I appreciate you being on the show and kind of shedding light on the Light Hunter. That's definitely someone that everybody should get to know and at least look at this artwork from the passion and the love that goes into it. Is very impressive, and it actually shows. So thank you for joining us, and we appreciate it. We will see you and talk to you again soon. Hopefully we'll have another episode where we can get through all of the questions.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. This is Living in the Limelight. I'm your host, Anton Scholl. Thank you again to Morgan Fatali for joining us and talking about Light Hunter and the shows that are coming up and all of this impressive photography that her husband does. It's amazing. So hopefully we'll all get out there and see that. And hopefully I will see you there also. So Come by and say hi. And what's the booth number? Is it 10E? I think. Is it
E10? Thank you for mentioning
E10.
that.
E10. Okay. All right. So come out to E10. Come and talk to us, and you'll make a whole bunch of friends out there. So we certainly appreciate that. All right. We will see you all soon. Morgan, hold on for a moment, and we'll get this going. So thank you again very much. Everyone have a great night, and we will talk to you soon on the next episode. Thank you. Thank you for joining our Living in the Limelight podcast with your host, Anton Scholl. Please feel free to comment, like, follow, share, and subscribe, and also add us to your playlist on your favorite streaming sites. Thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you again next week.